Hello and welcome. This video is going to be about Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14 and the claim that this is a so-called Messianic prophecy. Now, before we're going to start, let it be clear. We, as Muslims, believe that Jesus alayhi salam is the Messiah. He's called Al-Masih in the Quran in numerous places. For example, in Surah Ali Imran, which is chapter 3 of the Quran, in verse 45, Jesus alayhi salam is called the Messiah. Or Surah An-Nisa, which is chapter 4 of the Quran, in verse 171, Jesus alayhi salam is also being referred to as the Messiah. A person can never be a true Muslim if he or she believes that Jesus alayhi salam is not the Messiah. Now, let's get to it, shall we? Firstly, we are going to have a look at their claim that Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14 is supposedly a messianic prophecy. They're actually forced to say this because the New Testament says so. Matthew chapter 1 verses 22 to 23. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel. This is the ESV translation, also known as the English Standard Version. It is clear that the New Testament applies Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14 unto Jesus alayhi salam. But is this valid? The answer to this question is no. We are going to see why it is not valid. To do that, we have to look at the context. So, here it is. This is talking about the Syro-Ephraimite War, which took place in approximately 736 to 732 BCE, a military crisis which Ahaz, who was king of the southern kingdom of Israel, also known as Judah, faced and was threatened by. In about the year 732 BCE, the house of David alayhi salam was also facing imminent destruction by the coalition of the two kingdoms, the northern kingdom, also known as Ephraim, and the kingdom of Syria. These two kingdoms wanted to attack and conquer Jerusalem. After Ahaz had heard that Aram, which is Syria, and Ephraim, which is the northern kingdom, had joined forces and had become allies of each other, he trembled in fear. Verse 2 states, when the house of David was told, Syria is a league with Ephraim, the heart of Ahaz and the heart of his people shook as the trees of the forest shake before the wind. Now, God sent Isaiah to Ahaz to reassure Ahaz that Aram and Ephraim would not be able to conquer the southern kingdom, also known as Judah. You can read this from verses 2 to 9. From verse 10 and onwards is where it begins to get interesting. We read that the Lord brings a certain message to Ahaz, which is that Ahaz may choose which sign or miracle the Lord will give him. We read in verse 12 that Ahaz actually declined because he did not want to test the Lord. So, in verse 14, the Lord decides that he will give Ahaz a sign. Here comes the sign of the child. Now, we should ask ourselves why the sign is so important. It was to reassure Ahaz that divine protection was at hand. God would protect him and his citizens, and the armies of Syria and the northern kingdom of Israel would not be able to conquer nor subjugate Jerusalem. That was the whole purpose of the sign. Anyway, let's go on. Verses 15 and 16 are very crucial. These two verses are very crucial. Cream and honey he shall eat when he knows to reject bad and choose good. For when the lad does not yet know to reject bad and choose good, the land whose two kings you dread shall be abandoned. So, the child will eat cream and honey when he knows to reject bad and choose good. But before the lad reaches that age where he knows to reject bad and choose good, the land whose two kings Ahaz dreads shall be abandoned. It is more than obvious that this is speaking about a child in Ahaz's time, who was going to be born, but before he knows to reject bad and choose good, the Syro-Ephraimitic land of these two kings shall be abandoned. Now, how exactly is this speaking about Jesus alayhi salam when even before he or Mary, peace be upon her, his mother that is, or his grandfather were even born? The Syro-Ephraimitic land of these two kings had already been abandoned centuries ago. Thus, it is clear that this is speaking about a child who was going to be born during Ahaz's time. So, no, this is not a Messianic prophecy. Thanks for watching, and I truly hope that this video was informative. May God guide us all on the straight path. God bless.